And we are live. Boy, it comes on so quickly when there's no interference.
Right.
So just I'm just typing in a quick hello to everybody.
So welcome everyone to your coffee break and our insights here on Friday. And yes, so when Marianne's ready, she'll introduce the topic.
Okay.
But first, take us into the space.
There we go. Yeah. So first, quick disclaimer. Today is April 23rd, 2021. My name is Marianne and this is Lionel Francis. I'm with unboundedandfree.com, and he's with Lionel. I'll have to change that around. And he's with LionelFrancis.com. I need to, okay, this is a little rough, guys. This is just how it happens when we're live, because I'm doing several things on here. But anyways, we are not medical doctors or therapists. We don't diagnose, prescribe, or heal. We look at your frequency and energy patterning and tell you what we see. So if you please consult your doctor or therapist for professional advice. And also specifically for the coffee break insights, is all content is protected and copyrighted. And you may not use our content in any way, shape, or form without our written permission. So today is kind of a continuation of last time, and kind of the last two times they've been kind of following through, but looking at that piece of going in deeper or coming up across a pattern, and sometimes we see it one way and actually we need to and working with the pattern. So today I wanted to bring up something that I noticed with a client about the pattern, and the pattern actually having to go through the pattern to move to a deeper space. So what was happening is the person was feeling bound and tightly held and not able to break free. And this was something that the person had experienced in their family setting, around their expression, around who they were. And so at the surface, so at a lower level, kind of more surface level, at the level of the human identity and the family dynamics and all that, that was very true. What the person was and how they were seeing it was very accurate, very true. There had been those patternings of being held and bound by the person, by the family, and not having been able to really come out with their expression in the family setting. But when I looked at a deeper level, so when I kind of reached past, and I was seeing it from that point, but reaching past the human level of the distortion, so we're getting into spirit, there was something very different that was happening. And what was happening was that the person's spirit was actually what was holding them. And so there was that feeling of being held. And there was that overlap of the person feeling that being held, and it was getting associated with an old family pattern of being bound, because it was feeling the same, quite literally. Yeah. So in this case, I actually worked with the person to help them breathe into the pattern, feel that pattern, so that they could disassociate the past with what was actually happening in the moment and go through the pattern to get to a higher place.
Yeah. So this is really interesting, right? Because this is where we would think that to expand into that bigger sense of self, that spirit, we would have to get away from the restrictive or the constrictive feeling of the pattern. But actually, paradoxically, in this case, this client had to go through the pattern and open and expand into that space. So it kind of is an interesting observation here that it's not so. That's the piece that I'm really picking up here. So wondering what you have to share about that. Also, Marianne, because that's not. I wonder if that's how often that is actually the case for everybody. But in this case, that was really, and that's why this talk, that was really important, because on your own, you could really get limited by that pattern and stay stuck at that human identity level and never really fully break free. but then
Right.
your spirit uses the pattern. When you are on the path of awakening, your spirit uses the pattern to actually break you free, but you do need to realize that that's actually what's happening and go through it, which is why the support with this session with Marianne was really powerful.
So I just want to give a quick hello to Allie and Harold, who have joined us and have said hi in the chat. I think there's a sense, and Melinda. Hey, Melinda. So thanks for joining us. I know there's more people, but those are the ones who have said hello on the chat. So I know physically I can respond to them. But yeah, so it's an interesting process, because I think my sense of, having worked with people and working with myself also for years, for decades, because I've been actually doing this work for well over 20 years. And so it's this interesting piece of you have to work with it at different levels, through different levels. So definitely at first there's this need to recognize what the pattern is and how it has happened at the human level, at that human level, because we are in this life as humans. At least I am, and for the most part, I think people listening are. At least the ones in physical bodies are, and so that needs to be acknowledged, and that needs to be worked through at that level. And then as you progress and move higher in on that awakening path, you start to get to a place where you're releasing. You've released enough of the human identity piece that some of these patterns you start moving into seeing them from a higher level and what they're actually, what is actually going on. So there's that piece in there. Anything you want to add to that, Lionel, about that?
Yeah, where you just left off, that's where you can begin to. That's a really interesting place, because that's where you can see yourself as not being that human level anymore, and open up to beginning to experiencing yourself as that spirit in human form. So this is where that becomes really exciting for people to begin to realize that that's what's going on. So that's been that way for me as well. So that's kind of an exciting part of the journey, because otherwise we can get really stuck. Stuck either on the human level with the pain and in the pain body dynamics of that identity structure, which is kind of another topic. Or just be spirit, but kind of miss the human component. So it kind of is both. And really to come, so it's interesting to just have those pieces come together and to begin to work on that.
So there's a lot of different pieces. I mean, this is so complex because there's some other things that are coming to mind as we're talking about it. Is there is that piece of seeing it from spirit level. So that's kind of what I was talking about at the beginning, seeing it from that spirit level, where it's the spirit holding the person instead of that dynamics of being bound by the family. But there's also, so moving through it that way, and there's also, you can move through a pattern, and so it's coming up at the human level as having happened a certain way, and then moving beyond that. So for me, I'll use myself as an example, is that I have a very strong connection to something that is beyond human. And I have had these recalls that have been coming up for about 15 years now, of a storyline that's slowly been unfolding, of something that I experienced about 100,000 years ago, somewhere else, some other time dimension, and some other reality, not on Earth. And I have a very strong connection to the elegant beings who. Yes, very strong connection to them. I can feel them, and it really comes into the heart for me. So, and so there are those pieces where sometimes, okay, it's the human level being bound by the family, and then you go into this deeper space that is, for me, beyond the human identity, because this is, I really have a sense of this for myself, and a lot of people. Sometimes people I've worked with, that really comes through very strongly. There's something beyond having been human on Earth, having been on Earth. Ilaria just joined in too. So,
okay. And by the way, if you guys have any questions, just send them in. So
yeah, please put in, and Dee just joined in too. So please put in your little comments. So there will be another way. So moving deeper through the pattern to clear it, because those patterns, for the most part, are not something that just came up in this lifetime. They came up before,
yes.
and it could be through the family lineage. It could be through past lives.
Yeah.
And I'll go with whatever shows up or however presents itself. But usually, so at the human level, it might show up as family dynamics and being really controlled. And then you go to a deeper level beyond the human identity piece, and it's showing up completely different. It's showing up as something very different. Now the storyline can vary, can be kind of the same, but it's also very similar. So there's those two pieces in going through patterns, and why one aspect of why we keep going through patterns, and it's like it comes up again and it comes up again, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so you bring up some good stuff, and for some of you this may be like it was with me, because Marianne's really had that strong spirit connection. For me, it was really something I have to cultivate and to come into from the human up to that spirit level. And but I am beginning to also really notice that the patterns that people really struggle with, and that I've really struggled with, that they don't, because they're so deep, they don't kind of come from this lifetime. I can begin to sense that they come from past lifetime, or like you said, family dynamics. There's really, like you were saying, I really like the way you're explaining it, but these different levels. There's the spirit perspective, and there's the human identity level, but there's also these in-between levels, and really getting clear with those nuances of where we're at and working at that is just it's a profound experience. But those are the pieces that are coming up for me as we're talking about this.
Yes.
Yeah, this is great stuff.
And a little, I love the insights today, and good topic from Kayla. Thanks, Kayla. We're getting some good response from people, and post facto, not necessarily during the live, of saying, "Oh God, that was really helpful." So glad to hear that, because that's part of why we're doing this. Also, because we're having fun with it. But yeah, so I think the question that I'm kind of hearing in the audience here is that, well, how do I know? How do I work with that?
Yeah.
Which is always the question for all of us. And of course, when you're working with somebody who does this kind of work, whether it's frequency, energy, I combine the both, because I've been doing both for so long that they kind of blend in. There is a difference, and I have a post on a blog post explaining the difference between frequency and energy, the way from my background. But you can work with somebody. Now, the trick to remember is the person can only see as deeply as they have cleared themselves. So there's a little bit of that piece, but you can still learn from anybody if you pay attention to yourself and you really work with yourself and are asking a lot of questions. So you could do a session with somebody, and that will help you kind of get insights on what's really going on. And then, of course, it's like, okay, well, yes, and what about for myself? Because you're not necessarily running to your local healer every 5 minutes. You get something that comes up, or can afford it for whatever reasons. But so again, it comes back to what I said last time of asking yourself questions, asking a lot of questions. Where have I felt this before? Where's, how is this making me feel? Where did I experience it with who, and kind of get a scenario, and then kind of work to see that for yourself and kind of acknowledge it's like, okay, this is an experience. This is not me. I like to say that. A little psychological trick here for you guys is when you're talking to yourself, like I'll use myself in an experience, is to literally say your name. So Marianne, that's not you. That's just something you experienced in the past.
Yeah, okay. And for me, a piece here just to add in would be to do spatial referencing, to really get to feel who you are in the present moment in your surroundings, as you kind of look at objects and you kind of notice the distance of you in your body, in the outline of your body, as you're referencing yourself in relation to your environment. That really helps with this piece too.
Right. Yeah, so there's different components, so like I was saying, the working through the details. And then, when you feel like you've worked through the human level piece, you can start kind of like, well, have I experienced this elsewhere in another time and space? And see what comes up for you. That can really bring up some interesting information. God, I feel like I'm going to need to talk about my experience of these memories coming back to me, so that that's going to be another chat. We don't have time here, but that's going to be another topic.
That brings me to and you taught me that as well, Marianne. Is like to ask these open questions, to ask yourself those open-ended questions, because your system can get, or your spirit actually can come in with answers for you. And that's really important. And I used to always ask myself closed and like kind of, why doesn't this work? Rather than, how could I find out what's actually going on in this specific pattern, in this scenario, or whatever, where it comes from? So these open-ended questions are really good, because it kind of leaves your system to kind of come in with answers for your clarity. So that's another way that we're describing that you can kind of come to deeper realizations about yourself with that curiosity here about the pattern.
And I want to say also, to open-ended question in the way you're answering the question, but also even introduce the question that Lionel just gave an example. It's like, why is this not working? Leaving it open-ended by not trying to figure it out, trying to figure out the question. Just ask the question and then just kind of walk away, at least mentally, from kind of like, what is going on here? I got to figure this out.
I know you guys have that too.
Don't we all have that? Yes.
Right.
So leaving it open-ended in that you're not looking for an answer, you're not trying to figure it out, and you step away. So that would be a good time to actually go into spatial referencing, to really kind of bring yourself into the moment. And when your mind's not getting in the way, that's when your answer is going to pop up. So, okay, well, this is the coffee break time. This is it. Back to work. No, back to spatial referencing, and to whatever else is on your agenda for the rest of the day or evening. So thank you for joining us. And again, if you feel like you're inclined, if you need some extra help, we're both here for sessions. And on the screen, you can reach out through our emails. I have to put Lionel in caps so it shows up better. That's just the way the banner is shown up, guys. No hidden message in that. But
you're welcome, Jennifer.
And Jennifer just popped in. So thank you, guys. Yes, thank you, and we'll see you next time. So every Friday is scheduled. And then another time during the week, it's going to be spontaneous. We will just pop up for another little coffee break insights. So thank you all for joining us, and see you next time.
See you next time. I hope this was an inspiration for you guys, and notice what comes up. I was going to say that. So see you guys next time.